8,
7, 6, 5, 4,
Purple. Yellow.
9.
2,
Alpha.
1.
Yellow is right.
We're back.
We are back.
We're
Hello.
back.
We did a lot of
We're
counting.
back.
Pretty much the entire time we were gone, we were counting.
We just
We
counted down.
just did a countdown.
Started
That's right.
at 4,000.
Right. 4,000 bottles of beer on the wall.
And we drank
We
them
drank
all.
them all.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
anyway, Brandon, you're
Yikes.
on cue, man. You're bringing us back in.
Yeah,
dude.
you're the cue ball.
I'm on bringing us back in. I think we're back in. I think
I
we're
think-
here, whether we like it or not.
I think it's ironic that Mikey is calling people cue ball. I mean, I'm just saying.
He's just trying.
He's
to-
the only
I
one
think
who's
it's
allowed to use that word.
appropriate. Yes. Only we can call people that.
It's for too long that word has been used against you, and now you're taking it back. We're walking a fine line here. I think we better.
You can't see this now, but
Get onto the beer
Mikey's shirt
talk.
actually says "Cue Ball for Life" on the
That's
back.
true. That's true. It does.
Good one there, Chris. All right, so let's get into the holiday beers that we were talking about. This is one of the things I really like about this time of the year, whether it's pumpkin beers or spiced holiday beers or whatever. I just love them all, and you know, it's a kind of a divisive subject. A lot of people don't like them, and the people that do absolutely love them. And there's a lot of arguing about it. But
Yeah.
and
personally,
there's a lot of in between.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know what I think the best pumpkin beer is, right?
the one that you poured out. And,
Yeah, the one I'm pouring down the drain.
Well, you know, it always cracks me up.
exactly
that
what he
you
says
see
about
people
Dennis
complaining
Sim.
about them a lot, and I'm like, nobody is making you buy
Well,
pumpkin beer, or if you don't like it, don't buy it. You
I
know?
don't
let-
buy it.
Let's talk about Stubby's point of view, and I kind of understand it. What does pumpkin taste like? Does anybody know?
Nothing.
Well,
Like squash.
Okay, it tastes like a squash,
they
right?
should say spiced beer.
Right, but
It's not pumpkin.
it doesn't. You know, pumpkin doesn't taste like cinnamon. Cinnamon tastes like cinnamon. Clove tastes like clove. Nutmeg tastes like
Listen,
nutmeg. You
it's
put them
a-
all together, and
it's
You're
you get.
splitting
spice
hairs.
medium.
We all know we're talking about like a pumpkin pie beer. Everybody knows what we're talking about.
So why are
didn't
you-
know
This is
that
all
until this last
semantics.
year.
But
You know,
so then, why are you putting pumpkin in it if you're going to mask all that with a bunch of spice?
It gives it an orange color.
It's about
Because-
mouthfeel,
So
sir.
does food
Mouthfeel.
coloring.
because we're celebrating the fall. We're happy. The holidays are here. Why do you have to hate fun? Well,
I don't hate
Let-
fun.
let-
I made
have my fun. I'm
I
gonna
made
drink my
taco
pumpkin
beer.
you know?
I love fun.
Right. Yeah. That's an abomination.
He loves
and
meaty.
You don't see me.
He loves meaty fun. That's all.
Let's don't talk about Star Wars, and we won't have any fun.
Oh man.
We can talk about Star Wars, just not
we
Disney
can't.
Wars.
We can't talk about Star Wars now.
That's worse than politics.
We're talking about a very divisive
Right.
style here. So
Well, you know, skip the pumpkin beer. Let's move on to Christmas beers.
Yeah, to the
general holiday ale,
spiced
yeah.
beers. Yes.
I really
Yeah,
like
those
the
suck,
gingerbread
too.
man ones.
Because there are fewer lagers that fall in this range, other than like stuff like Krampus and whatnot from Southern Tier. You know, that you don't find as many things that are geared towards holidays as a lager. So
Well, and sometimes you find like Sierra Nevada just does a real hoppy. I don't know if they just call it a fresh hop ale.
right.
The
It's-
celebration.
yeah,
ale?
celebration.
Which
It's
is
an IPA.
Fantastic beer.
That is a good beer.
Fantastic beer.
It's
yeah.
That is good beer.
It's amazing. It's pretty much the same beer every year, but it's still fun to hold some back and age it and see how those hops kind of fall out and you bring out that malt character. But you know that's a brewery that's doing a holiday beer, but they're not doing a holiday spice beer. They're doing something different for the holidays.
What I think of when I think of this is Anchor's is
Anchor
it
Christmas
beer
or our special ale
Yeah.
is what it's actually called.
Is it called our special ale? Okay.
Yeah.
And that to me kind of is the epitome of what you're talking about when you're talking about a holiday spiced beer. I think it's a really well made beer. I've always liked it when I had it.
It tastes like somebody wiped their ass with a pine cone.
It's
There's a taste to wiping your ass. I
and he
think
knows
you're
it.
carrying your
Well,
stroke way
here's the
too
thing.
far, dude.
He knows it. Okay. It's what a lot of people refer to it as the Christmas beer or the Christmas tree beer because
Yeah.
there's always a different tree. There's a different genus tree on the label. It's not always a Christmas tree. There's
several
genuses of trees.
there's a tree on the label.
St. Nicholas has approved all of them.
And a lot of times there's a spruce or pine or,
Some sort of a conifer or evergreen is on there. I believe it's of the genus Beeristrius.
no, that's the flavor in the beer a lot of times.
Yeah, no, it does. It does
spruce
have
tips,
kind of a,
right? Spruce tips. I think
Sometimes.
they use them.
And the recipe changes every year. It's never the same beer. It's never the same label.
And we're drinking Pumpkin right now,
I just
which
poured a
is
pumpkin. Yeah.
one of my favorite.
If you want a gourdy beer,
thanks.
this is
Call me a
actually probably
gourd
the
head.
closest thing to a gourdy beer that there is.
You know, it's
I mean,
really odd.
New Belgium did make a good pumpkin beer one year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
do.
it was
Pump
the,
kick.
It was sour.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it had
Oh, that one too,
it had
yeah.
cranberry in it too, so it was tart.
Yeah, it was a sour beer.
Yeah, the pump
actually.
kick was
Oh,
really good.
man,
liked
remember the old cranberry lambic that?
Yes.
It did smell like it did
Sam
smell like
Adams
kind of
made?
like.
Yeah, you should. They shouldn't have called it a lambic, but it was.
No,
a good
but it was
beer.
good.
It was a good
It was
beer.
really
yeah.
good.
Was that called Pumpkin? Or what
Pump
was that?
kick.
No, it was pump,
Pump
kick.
kick.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
They
was,
did that for 2 or 3 years. I thought that
Did
was
they?
a great beer. Yeah.
It tasted great, but it smelled kind of like a mop bucket.
Yeah,
You know,
it had a funky smell.
This one
Nice.
smells almost exactly like. Some
I was
stuff
at a
bought
local
Red Fair.
brewery recently, and there was a sour beer on the menu, and I asked the waitress about it, and she says, "Oh, that beer smells like cheese." And I said, "What?" And she says, "Yeah, it smells like cheese." And I thought, "Well, I'm gonna try it anyway." And
it was a dry hot.
damn, did it smell like cheese? Let me tell you, it was like blue cheese all up in your gullet.
Now go there, Stubby.
And the beer, if you could get past the beer, if you get past the smell, the beer tasted really good. But I just couldn't get past it.
Well, and
couldn't
she
even drink
inferenced
the beer.
to the cheese, and that just totally like.
I should have listened.
Did
to,
you try
yeah.
drinking it through a straw?
No, I should have. But you couldn't even get this glass
Ma'am,
anywhere
ma'am,
near your
ma'am,
face.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
can I have a straw, please?
Man,
I
I'm
need
gonna
a
Can
straw
I
for
get
my
like
beer.
4 straws put together so I can be about 4 feet
Can I
away
get a
from
crazy
this
straw,
glass?
please? A really
Yeah.
big one.
We won't call them out here, but I got to know later.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Because the rest of their beers are fantastic, and the food there is fantastic. It's a great brewery. I don't know why they even served this beer. I had to put
They
it down
should
the
have
drain.
poured it down the drain, yeah.
they should have.
So let's
So-
say the pumpkin from Southern Tier is something that's probably the one of the more it's one of the epitome of gourd beers that actually have spice to them. I think that this beer actually has the gourd character to it. I know they add it. So
Well, it tastes like squash.
yeah, I mean, a little bit. There's a weirdness to it that to me does taste like
I didn't
what
try it,
gourd
so
should
you
be.
know.
I judged some pumpkin beers with Stan Hudson one time, and we got down to
To him.
2 different beers that we were kind of
Is this
debating.
the one that's really sweet?
no,
Yes.
it's not sweet at all. It's good.
It's a
real
Southern
spicy.
Tier beer. They're mostly sweet.
I don't think this is real sweet.
I mean, for
It's
what
pretty,
it is.
pretty mellow.
It's kind of
He's
dry.
scared of it.
Yeah.
Just let him have
Dry
it.
and crisp. Yeah. But Stan and I got down to 2
Out of
different
the bottle.
pumpkin beers that 2
Chug
different
it.
pumpkin beers that I thought one was better, he thought the other one was better, and he thought the one he liked was better because he thought he could taste that it actually had pumpkin in it. He didn't think the other one had pumpkin in it. And I'm like, man, I don't know that anybody can discern that. I mean, I think maybe
You take the
think-
spice away, and then maybe we'll talk.
What was the name of the big? Was it the Charlie Brown thing? The
Great
pumpkin.
Pumpkin?
A great pumpkin.
The Great Pumpkin?
It's the
Yeah.
Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
That tastes like
Right,
the
psychopath
Great
he was.
Pumpkin pissed in that jar. I'm just sorry. It's sweet and
And he
gross
knows what
and
piss tastes like.
It tastes like
there's
candy.
a lot of excrement that
It's
you're
like
familiar
candy,
with.
candy corn and weirdness. It's just like
I think that's
it's like
mostly
Halloween
parental
threw
knowledge.
up in that jar and bottle. I'm
Which
sorry.
some people might
Stubby
be
hates
into.
fun.
I do. I hate fun.
You know what? Now that you mention it, it does kind of taste like Fireball.
I've never
there's
had that.
a certain cinnamon to it. Yeah,
Cinnamon,
Yeah.
sugar, and
It does taste
Missing
like
it.
and
candy
Fireball's
corn.
delicious. So
Tastes like candy.
Never
corn.
had it.
Delicious.
oh, it's awesome, dude.
No.
it's awesome.
it tastes
No.
like bad decisions are coming.
Yes, it does. It's exactly what it tastes like. Yeah.
And that's
So speaking
why.
of bad decisions, let's get on to our spice beer.
Right.
Patreon spice beer that James Castellano brewed with us.
I'm so
Not a
glad.
bad
I'm so
decision.
glad that you guys didn't tap me for this because I would have been out.
Well, I actually did tap you on the shoulder and say, "What do you think of this recipe?"
We did
and,
tap
and
you.
I got a whole lot of nothing back.
I would have said,
otherwise,
"Don't do it."
I got 2 hate spice beers, And then I got some actual good comments. So, and then Mikey helped. Mikey basically controlled the recipe.
I
that
helped
night,
too.
so.
I helped too. I had input.
Brandon?
No,
You did. Brandon and
was
Mikey
there.
were the most helpful, and
Well,
they said it. You know, like tamed some stuff down on what he gave us originally, which was some online recipe. It wasn't his, so you know.
Oh, was that an online one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Online.
apparently he had just found
Okay,
a recipe
okay.
that sounded good to him, and
Now, was
So
it's
there-
kind of all over the place.
There are
Was
two
the-
aspects to developing a recipe like this. There's your base beer, and then there's your spices.
Right.
And the first thing I noticed when we looked at the base beer that he had sent us was that I thought that it had a lot of strong roasted malts in
Right.
it,
Right.
which we dialed back a little bit. He had chocolate malt in it. We brought it back to pale malt. He had
Pale chocolate.
or excuse me, yeah, pale chocolate. I'm sorry. And I think he had roasted barley in there too, didn't he?
Yeah, it did.
Originally,
I think it did.
And
It
I
had
could see you
carafa
guys.
and
You
It
got
was
rid
carafa.
of that. Was it
And
carafa? Okay.
And the aroma and it's actually not the Swan aroma. We use the Irex aroma.
we
It's
changed
new
it a
for
lot
us.
actually compared to what
For what you're looking at, Brandon.
Mikey, why don't you describe the process that we went through thinking about these? Because Mikey he was in control of Beersmith that night, so it's like we talked about this and we thought this is too much and it's going to be too much on all levels. We felt like that night as far as even the base beer went. So
This is one of the things that you have to know your ingredients. And you know, I started off by reading the Designing Great Beers, and that's got a really good section on malts, and it talks about what different malts are going to bring to the table, and then each section on each of the beers talks about which it's NHC recipes that they've tapped, and they tell you what recipes had what percentage of grain. So that kind of helps you dial in some of the beer recipes, and then also working up here at the shop, I've got a pretty good appreciation for what each grain. And every time I'm milling grain, if it's something I haven't milled,
Nibble.
I nibble a little bit, and I chew a couple pieces of grain.
just a nibble. Just a little nibble.
What's that grain going to bring to this beer? So we were discussing up here what are the things that are traditional in holiday spice beers, and the biggest one is a little bit of a chocolate flavor. So the recipe he had presented had a lot of roasted barley, which is going to be just burnt black kind of coffee flavors. Mm-hmm. We didn't want that. We wanted chocolate. The best grain to give you chocolate flavor is...
Well, he had chocolate malt in it too,
Right, but he had...
which is a little bit of a misnomer because
Right.
actual chocolate malt is closer to roasted barley.
He had-
but
Right,
it's
he
a
had-
pretty
it's too
dark.
much.
Right. He
Yeah.
had regular chocolate malt, and like Brandon's saying, it's a misnomer. Chocolate malt doesn't give you any chocolate flavor. It gives you the color of chocolate. And you use it in varying degrees, and you'll get some hints of chocolate. Apparently, Stubby tried a beer he doesn't like.
I think
it's
this
spice, so you know.
one, it tastes like
We
coffee
used-
at grandma's.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Tastes delicious, dude.
We thought, okay, to enhance that chocolate flavor that you're going to get from the pale chocolate will give you the color and a lot of actual chocolate flavor.
Yeah.
Without any of the acrid,
Right.
kind of harsh notes.
Well, I read a great article in BYO or Zymergy or one of those magazines, and it was someone that had a baking background had gone through a lot of the malts, and they did a little mini mash basically in a mason jars, and they came up with what does blank malt actually taste like. So what does Crystal 10 actually taste like versus Crystal 20 versus 30, and she went all the way through all the crystals and a lot of the specialties, and they get to the chocolates and the coffees, and she had a baking background. Well, in baking, if you want to enhance chocolate flavor, you use a little coffee.
Right.
When you want to enhance coffee flavor, they use a little chocolate. So I've taken that to heart, and every beer I brew, I really want to enhance some chocolate flavors. I put a little coffee malt. So we did 4 ounces of some coffee malt in there to bring out the chocolate flavor.
And it's important to note the amount that you're talking about, too, because it's 2.4% of the total grain.
Right.
bill.
Right.
It's
We're talking
just a touch.
Very small
So
amounts.
it's a pinch of salt, like Sean Kidwell was talking about.
Yeah.
You're not
Sure.
picking out that coffee flavor. It's there to accentuate something else.
And the pale chocolate's 7.1% of this recipe. It was 3/4 of a pound. We looked at some caramel malt to give it just a good backbone. So we went with a 150.
But a 150 is a backbone that you're thinking about. Like the backbone flavor is some caramel, dark fruit, and whatnot. And we're thinking
Right.
dark fruit in terms of like holiday, sort of the fruit cake-ish. Yeah.
Right. We were looking for
Raisin.
exactly
Right.
fruitcake. And then
A little dark cherry.
we did the aroma malt, which is kind of a Caramunic 3. Do we know what that Lovabond is on the
203 it
150.
says.
150 as well?
This says
Thing.
203 on here.
Well, this is I needed something to put in. I don't
Oh,
have
okay.
we used Irex aroma.
The
so,
Irex stuff isn't in Beersmith yet.
Irex aroma. I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head. I can look it up though.
but
Give me a
we
second.
We had some of that the other night at the club meeting, and
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really not. It's
what I really liked about it is that
it's like a 90, I believe. It's like it's in comparison to Caramunic 3.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
Caramunic
it's,
3,
it's
it
a
was similar to
darker
that.
Caramunic 3.
What I liked
It's the
about
right
it is it
territory.
had that kind of dark caramel malt flavor to it, but it also I felt
To
like it was a
me-
little more toasted,
Yeah.
and it had a little bit of a toasty, biscuity flavor
Right.
to it.
To me, however, it tastes real similar to Caramunic 3. It just has a stronger aroma. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that's what I got from it. But that's me.
I thought it smelled
Mikey,
more.
Yeah.
Sorry. go ahead.
I would say though, Mikey, I think you hit on this a lot. This is one thing that and this is not a bash on Carafa, but to me, if you use Carafa or the Carafa Special in a lot, to me it has a unique flavor, and to me it does not taste like chocolate at all if you use it in strong amounts.
It does not.
Somehow
would
that
you
malt
agree?
gained a reputation
It's
as
tangy.
adding color with not a lot of flavor, and I don't know how that came to be because I think it's got a lot of flavor contribution to
Yeah.
it.
It's a
Yeah,
weird.
and-
it's
and
hard
it-
to describe that flavor.
And if you get a lot of it, it tastes weird.
Yeah,
Tangy.
it's a very distinct flavor.
That's a lot of the grain you'll see in like a black IPA where
right.
they're really looking for just color, but use too much and you get this weird acrid roastiness that overpowers
Yeah, I
that
agree.
hot
Yeah,
background.
but it's not even like an acrid flavor. to
No.
me. It's just like a weird.
I call it
flavor.
tangy. I don't know. It's
There's
like
a very distinct roasty flavor
It
to
sits
it.
in a weird way on your tongue,
But it's- to
it
me-
works with some hops, but it doesn't work with other hops. That kind of thing.
It doesn't
Right.
taste good.
Tastes like burnt
to
coffee.
me. To me,
It
if you want
stands
a true,
out.
if you want a true, more of a true chocolate flavor, I think the pale chocolates work.
Pale
Always
chocolate's the way to
better.
go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with
but-
some roast barley or maybe a smaller amount of actual chocolate.
Right.
I mean, but if you're going to use Carafa, to me, use it in very, very small amounts.
if you're using more than probably 4 ounces of Carafa, you're probably using too much.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, yeah.
That's
in
it's
1,
just-
2, 3 or the 1, 2, 3 specials,
'Cause
which
to
are
me-
just dehusked.
To me, those flavors dominate the beer if you use too
They
much.
can, yeah, I agree. And so when you look at this recipe, you've got 71% of base malt, just Irex Pale, 10% almost of flaked oats.
And we did the flake just to kind of give it some body and some
Body and
silkiness.
silkiness,
I was looking for, like you said, silkiness. Just something.
Well, and that's one of the things about a holiday ale when you're talking about the base beer and the mouthfeel and that kind of thing. You want this to be something that you're going to sip in front of a fire, or
Right.
it's a
Right.
sipping beer.
Especially if
it's
you're
got to
adding
have some
spices.
substance to it. Yeah, especially if you're adding spices. Exactly. This isn't going to be something you're going to be down in pints of. This is something you're
Right.
going to spend a little time with, and
A little
it's good on a
chewy
cold
and-
night. Yeah, a
yeah,
little chewy.
exactly.
So, but the point there too is you're looking at over 80% base malt,
Yes.
pretty much.
Well, you want some body. You want some heftiness to this
Right.
beverage that you're taking. It's
Well, and
it's
you
nice and
you
warm.
really don't want those specialty malts to take a front seat like you might want to if you're doing an imperial stout or
Right,
oatmeal
right.
stout or something like that, because you have to remember you're brewing this base beer to then lay spice flavors on
Right.
top of. So you can't have too dominating of a base beer, and that's what the original recipe that he sent in. I thought that base beer is going to be tough to
Right.
put other flavors on top of. You're going to end up fighting with it, and something's going to end up standing
Well,
out of proportion.
Not only that, and we haven't gotten to this yet, but the spice character that went with that was way over the top, and I think that went with what the base malts were. You know, that's part of that. It's like it's a little too much on a whole. Even those out, if you're thinking about it, because you want the base to be good and then spice it up gradually.
Exactly.
Well,
Right, you know, it's
No,
always
you're
gradual.
exactly right about that.
You know, this is kind of an offshoot because, and I think this is a perfect example because Mikey and I have done lots of, different experimental brews and stuff, and we talked a lot about this taco beer that we came across, we came
tacoed
up-
a lot about it.
Yeah, we talked
We did talk a lot about it.
But
I was told we were not supposed to talk about
We
it.
don't talk about it.
One of the things
A lot
that
of people gordiated themselves on it.
we really looked at it from a standpoint of, okay, how much flavor is this going to impart? How much is this going to? I mean, and everything that we tried to do, we tried to go smaller. You know, I mean, let's use less. Let's not go over top with that. And I would imagine that most people couldn't pick out most of the different things that we actually put in the beer. And I know Brand's on.
There's one I can pick out.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's
Human to
really
you.
strange. Here's one of the
Well, that
things
happens
that
in any spice beer.
this is one of the things, Brandon, that you would have been blown away with as this beer aged. Some of the spices changed dramatically.
Oh, well, I believe that. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and as a matter of fact, it became very citrusy.
Well, and that's one of the great things about these holiday spice beers, and one of the things you'll see people do a lot with them is hold them over and age them because they do change with all of these
Right.
different flavors and spices and stuff you're going to put in them. Those spices don't all hold up over time. They
No.
change,
Right.
and some
Well,
come to the
And one of
forefront,
you know,
and some drop off.
the one thing that you were complaining about, I think that you didn't like was the cumin that was in it, but that actually completely almost dropped away. I mean, it really became
Now
less,
we're talking.
We got,
Yeah,
I mean,
like it was there.
but,
You knew that we had used it, but it wasn't.
but the lime
slapping you
came
in
to
the
the
face.
forefront.
Okay, well, that would be
the
good.
lime,
Yeah,
and-
yeah, I would
I mean,
like that
cumin
one.
has sort of a lemony character to it
Right.
in the end, and it's like if the other parts of that drop away, then you get a better
Right.
thing. Kind of like when you do a spice beer and that big cinnamon nutmeg thing and allspice or whatever drops away, and you just get that baseline.
But
it's just where it needs to be. You know?
I guess basically the point I was trying to make with that is when we were making that, we were like, okay, I mean, there's all kind of weird stuff in this. There's coriander, there's lime peel, there's smoked malt, there's mesquite smoked malt. It has salt in it, sea salt. It has what else does it have in it?
Ancho chili powder.
Ancho chili powder, and I don't think you could pick out, any one of those other than maybe the cumin at first.
You couldn't list that in a competition
Yeah,
and say
but-
it's got these spices because in
We-
a
we did
competition
a-
it's
we
got
did
to
a-
be in there.
Well, we did a small amounts, enough to just enhance the overall flavor, but it wasn't like
Brandon's grinning.
Brandon was one of the few that didn't like the beer. But
Well, and to what Brandon said about, or what we discussed is a lot of these are going to age out. Well, something I'm gonna give you a spoiler now.
I had it very young.
I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. We're going to collect over the next month, 2 months. We're going to collect all the holiday beers that come out this season. We're going to keep a 6-pack each of all the beers we get our hands upon, and we're gonna have an episode in July. We're gonna have just a Christmas in July, maybe two, yeah. But we're gonna have a Christmas in July, and we're gonna open up some beers that we've aged for 6 months, and we're gonna keep them all together, and we'll keep them in the same conditions, and we'll see how those spices age over time, and that'll be a fun episode.
I feel like maybe the taco beer, you follow the same advice that Kevin Spacey should have followed, and that's
Less
just
is
don't
more.
have it too young.
Yeah, don't.
Wow.
we had to go there.
Now, see, I'm
Wow.
wondering if the taco beer will age out differently, or if it had tasted different if it had aged a little longer,
You
because
know,
it didn't last very
that
long.
particular beer
only
being-
lasted about a week.
being
Yeah.
it's a wit beer base.
Would have lasted a lot
So
longer at my house.
It's not gonna last very long, and if it does, the
I don't
base
think that-
beer is going to change
You know,
considerably.
honestly, I don't think that is a beer that should stick around for a long time. I don't think.
I don't think
I
it
don't.
should either.
I don't think it would get better.
Well, you're also talking about a light base, and like something like the holiday stuff. Most of the time, they're not
Yeah,
light
yeah.
bases for these
well,
things. Like
in this
even
low
the,
alcohol,
even
this,
the pumpkin that I gave you guys, that should not stick around for a long time.
well,
it's going to go
and
bad.
this
on
is
you.
low ABV, where typical holiday beers are higher in alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
this one that y'all did was what? I'm not seeing the ABV
well,
here.
we actually
So
apparently were a little low.
Post boil gravity was
We were-
1063.
We were looking for 1063, and we did not hit 1063.
So 1063, you'd be looking at about 6% or so. Typically, these are going to be more in like the 7 or 8% range.
Right. We
Depending,
went
yeah.
we went specifically low on this because we weren't sure how big of a beer that James wanted. We didn't know if this was something he wanted to hang on
Right.
to.
Well,
Was
the
this-
nice thing about the 6% range is that's a very easy range to ferment. It's a very easy range to design a beer and ferment, and you don't have to worry too much about. If you get too low, you really have to worry about propping up the flavor and making sure it's not watery. If you get too high, you have to worry about attenuating it out and making sure the yeast does its thing. At 6%, that is a very easy beer to carry
Right.
through
from the beginning to the end.
And it
That's
lasts for a
great
while
start.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
you can still.
compared to a big beer, which needs time to actually hit its stride.
So let's then talk about bittering and spices going into this. So we talked about the base beer.
And before you go there, the whole premise of me going into all that crapola that we were just talking about, I guess the whole premise about talking about the taco
taco
Talking
beer.
about
but was basically less is more. And
Correct.
Yes.
And I would say if you've never brewed beers before, you can always add to, but you can't take away.
Especially
So,
with flavor character like spices. I mean,
Oh my God!
yeah.
And they never go away. I mean, it's hard to get rid of them. I mean, they do change over time, but if you
Definitely.
overspice something, for example, I tried to do that Indra Conundra. I called it Stubby Conundra or whatever, and it was it was the
The Stubby Conundrum.
coconut curry stout or
a
whatever,
lot of peppers.
and I put way too much cayenne pepper, and it. I mean, the overall flavor of the beer was really good, but it was hot as hell, man.
Oh yeah, it was.
heartburn
you,
glass.
and you couldn't take that heat or that
Right.
pepper back out. But I could have added it even into the keg. But so I mean, I guess the premise I was trying to make is when you're adding spices, you can always add back to it in the keg or before bottling,
And be
but
tame
you-
up front.
but you can't take it away.
Yeah, be tame up
You
front.
know, yeah. So I always say, and you got to look at it this way. This is the way I look at any kind of spices. I would like spices to enhance the flavor rather than to dominate the flavor. So I still
Right.
I still want it to taste like beer, and just have a slight amount of spice that enhances the beer.
I
Right.
like things that taste like beer.
Well,
Yeah, I know you
okay,
do.
with this recipe, that was one thing that we definitely aimed at for him, and we sent him away with that too.
Well, the
Was
other
that
thing-
concept of like, hey man, here's what we did with our spices. This is why we did it, but we're also sending you away with the rest of them. We gave him what was left in all the spice packs. If
You
want to
can
take
later
it and-
make a
yeah,
tincture or
we
something
told
like
him
that and
make
add
a
something
tincture
to it, yeah.
work with it if that's what you want more of later, but go with this now and see what you think of it, and then go into that.
But the other thing too is and this applies both to specialty malts and to specialty ingredients, which we're going to get into in a minute here, is the more of them that you add, the less of each one there needs to be.
Right.
Right.
Because if you have 10 things piled on top of each other, none of them can stand out strong. If you're going to have one spice that is your spice addition to your beer, you can have that spice be right up front. Pow. That's the thing.
Right.
But if you're trying to layer 6 or 7 different spices, you really have to be measured in how you do every single
Well,
one.
Definitely.
and that's exactly the point that I was trying to make. Really is that, when you're, and I think this is a big problem with like some of the local craft breweries or even nationwide craft breweries, is because they only make these beers one time a year.
Mm-hmm.
So they may make them one year. You've got like long generation links between, these beers. So they might go, this year they brew it and they go, oh crap, man, we put a little bit too much of this year. Maybe we should back that off next year. This isn't something that they brew all the time.
They're going back to their notes from a year ago and trying to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then they're trying to change it again.
We all know what that's like.
Yeah, so I think this is something that's really difficult to do in a standpoint of once you kind of nail down a recipe and you kind of figure out exactly how you want to do it. It makes a big difference because I think you can totally ruin a beer with spices.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Because and the only reason I say that is if you put less in, it's still going to be drinkable. And you might next year want to add a little more, but after the fact, if you add too much, either you can always do this too. Do 10 gallons of it and split it out.
Yeah.
And have something you can blend back with it, just a base beer without all the spices, and then add it back to it. But you can't take the spice out.
Well, I think we came up with a pretty good base beer that would be drinkable on its own, enjoyable.
Yeah, that was our goal first: is make a beer that is drinkable on its own.
And then,
like this would, I think, even on its own, make a good holiday.
Holiday beer.
Well, I mean, like the raw winter warmer is just it's really just a big bold beer. It doesn't have any spices,
which is what we kind of aim this at. And then, like, we even gave them the option of saying, "Do you want to add lactose to this, just for some of that extra character of something?" Now we don't know what it's going to do. And, just a little bit mouthfeel, sweetness. But like, let's try it with the spices first and see what happens, and then go from there. Because I think every time I've found a lot of luck with using lactose and oats together to make a really nice spiced beer.
But if you're lactose intolerant, it doesn't work well. I'm just saying.
Yes, that's true. That's why we mention it
all
to him.
So
you have no tolerance anyway.
Zero tolerance policy.
You got lactose and some homebrew together, baby. Woo!
We started looking at
garlic and sauerkraut and
Jesus. So we started looking at the hop schedule, and we wanted for bittering we wanted just something
hashtag
benign,
right?
Just a normal bittering.
He had a very harsh,
harsh bittering. I think he had Warrior was in there. And we decided that we were going to stick with something pretty mellow. So we went with the German Pearl, and then his hops or his spice schedule was the one that he had found online. I should say not his, but this recipe online was pretty in your face with ginger and cinnamon and clove and orange and I can't remember what else.
Especially clove.
A lot of clove, and
didn't it have 4 cloves in it to start with? 4.
I think it may have had more than that.
The clove 4,000.
I want to say this about cloves. Y'all remember Matt Young?
F those cloves.
Matt Young that was in our club.
Which one?
Used to be the opera singer or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
Matt Young is probably one of the best brewers I've ever met at taking food ingredients and putting them in. Did a fantastic job with it. He won some awards. At any rate, he came to my house. We were brewing pumpkin beers one year, and instead of using like pumpkin spice and allspice and that kind of thing, he wanted to do the individual spices to put in there. And he put 2 cloves of cloves in this beer, and when I tasted it, it was like a clove beer. That's all. I mean, cloves are so strong.
Right.
Take as much as you think you need and use a quarter.
Well, this is something we had this discussion for. Like, Mikey pulled that bag out to show me. Here's the bag of cloves. Here's our ounce that we sell of cloves.
Right.
And they're tiny. Mm-hmm. And I said, how much are we putting in? Like half of this? Or what's the deal? And he said, no. Like 2 of these.
We put 2.
No, really, like 2 of what's in the bag? Yeah, 2 of these. I said, I've never
max.
done it that way.
Now, did y'all crack them?
I crushed them a little bit.
Oh, that's going to be a clovey beer.
Actually, it didn't smell it. Okay. It smelled a lot like kind of Christmas cookies. Okay. There was cinnamon.
Which is what we're aiming for here.
Yeah. We did 2 cinnamon sticks.
Yeah, I want to taste that coming back up.
I can honestly say I have never formulated a recipe based on what it would taste like coming back up.
Challenge accepted.
Stubby spice beers. That's the way he does spice
Yeah.
beer.
So then we did some sweet orange peel,
He did not design those kits.
and it smelled like Christmas cookies. A little bit of clove, a lot of cinnamon.
Yeah, I would toss those cookies.
and
No, okay. I will say while they
Maybe a salad
brewed
beer.
this, I came back in on that day and I walked in and I said, "Man, this smells
Yes.
really good. I can tell like something's really going on in here." And I could smell that, and I could definitely smell like the orange peel, like blossoming out real fast.
Yeah.
You know, the
I
boil.
think personally, when it comes to these spices and these type of ingredients, it's important to know which ones are forgiving and which ones are not forgiving.
Right.
Yeah.
Like orange peel is a forgiving
Yeah, it is.
ingredient.
Well, it depends
It
if it's
fades.
bitter or sweet.
But they both fade.
Yeah, but either one, you're still not, like with clove, the difference
Yeah,
between
yeah,
one
yeah.
clove and 2 cloves is huge. With orange peel, the difference between half an
Ounce
ounce and
and
3/4 of an ounce is a little more forgiving. There are some things
Kind of like
that
when you want to see some people with cloves and not some people without cloves.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. Right.
Okay,
right.
okay.
There's a huge difference between off the shoulder and on the shoulder. Yeah. So, but when you get into things like cinnamon and clove and orange peel, I think those three in order. Orange peel is very forgiving.
Definitely.
Cinnamon is medium, and clove is not forgiving at all.
Yeah,
No.
but I would say, however, that like any of the orange peel, if you use too much, it can be really too bitter. I mean, it could really cause.
No,
it to be-
it can, but the amount that it takes to be too much is not as sensitive as some other things.
Right.
I've brewed with orange peel a lot, and I think it
to
has
me,
more
it took-
wiggle
Well, yeah,
room.
you're talking
It
about
has more wiggle room.
this.
than
This
others.
is a half ounce,
Especially
and,
in a dark
and you could
beer.
maybe go up to an ounce and a half or so. But
Right.
with clove, we're talking about 2 cloves, but 3 might be too much.
3 would
And-
definitely
And
be too
chocolate
much.
stomps on a lot of those flavors.
That's true. yeah,
versus any
yeah.
kind of light flavors. So that's really the point of that, you know.
Yeah, Jason Perez says he can't trust you anymore because you don't have a beard.
I have a beard.
He's got a beard.
Which
There's
beard?
one.
Jason.
He's got a professional beard.
I've got a nursing school beard. Okay?
Nursing school?
Yeah, I'm going to nursing school because I'm going to be a nurse.
He's got a male nurse.
Yeah, nurse. A nurse.
okay,
Come on
that
now,
one.
nurse.
He gets more loose-fitting white uniforms.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I get to wear a white skirt.
I was. Never
Jason,
mind.
I don't
you
know.
derailed it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. I still have a beard.
Is this the rabbit hole we were referring to?
No,
in
well,
the
it
opening?
could
May have been.
Another one.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah, let's drink
avoid
that
this
one.
one.
Let's get on past this and then
Yeah.
we'll go to that one. But I think on a whole, when you're talking about like what we did here, we took something that we felt was over the top in a lot of boundaries, malt wise and spice wise and hop wise. It's like, man, that was the beer he gave us felt like it was too much, and we wanted to go to something that we thought would be a nice, much more easygoing, softer character in a whole that would last and be much more enjoyable now and hopefully later. We'll see how it ages. You know, we'll ask him, see what happens. He took it home, so we'll see what happens. We also went with you went with Liberty Ale, right, Mikey?
Yeah, for yeast, we started talking about a lot of the holiday beers are going to be brewed with English beer yeast.
Well, I know we talked about like Liberty,
we thought about-
Empire, English Dry, things like that. So
We were-
So
since,
what's the thought process behind going with an English yeast on this?
well, number
Well, we
one,
didn't in
we
the
went
end,
we were going
It's
with
fruity.
we were going with a dry yeast because we're sending James home with the beer.
Well, I go with the
and
dry
we-
yeast
we-
whenever I possibly can anyway.
Sure.
You know, yeah.
But we wanted to give him something he could pitch immediately. A lot of the holiday beers, if you look online and look at recipes, a lot of these holiday beers are going to be using an English yeast. I think they're looking for some of those esters to enhance.
I think it
The
comes
flavors.
from a historical character, like an old ale.
Correct.
You know,
That-
I mean,
that's-
they all came from English-based styles.
Well, personally, I
so-
would use an English yeast too. I think a little bit of the esters would be fitting. It would help kind of accentuate some of the flavors that are in there,
Right.
both on the specialty malt and the specialty ingredient side. And then also, I think that The attenuation level. Sorry, I hit the camera there. The attenuation level on an English yeast compared to like a Callio yeast, I would prefer that it would at least a little bit of residual sweetness in there,
just underneath. So,
and then also drop out really nice too. I wouldn't want any residual yeast in this. I would want it to drop bright.
And you're not looking for dry. You're looking for sweetness, like you said.
Right.
We went with
you're not looking for dry.
Right. So we went with the Liberty Bell, which is an English strain that
It's fantastic.
works with
That's the
Mangrove Jack.
Mangrove Jack,
That's
Liberty
great
Bell yeast. It's pretty much it's my house strain. I use it for
That's my go-to
60-70%
English strain,
of my strains. It works with most of your American strains, IPAs, pale ales, browns, ambers,
In the end,
blondes. It works with
Because the night of, we weren't sure, and we're like Liberty Bell or Empire. What did you feel like?
I wanted to go clean. I wanted.
Do you feel because I think
the
Empire
Liberty
would
is a
have
little
added,
cleaner. Yeah.
added more character to
Right.
the yeast character.
There are some yeasts that, as I like to say, they kind of put the rubber stamp on the beer, and I didn't want a yeast to impart its flavor on the beer. I wanted the malt because we spent a good 45 minutes to an hour working on this malt bill.
We did actually. Yeah.
We were looking for
More
a malt,
on the beer that we didn't
Right.
actually brew the next day.
Yeah, we did on that one. But we spent a lot of
IPA.
Still need to
time.
brew that one.
We will. We spent a lot of time working on a recipe that is going to hold up to the spices, that's going to hold up to the funkiness that we're going to add to it with these spices without losing itself. And we wanted a yeast that would ferment out, be clean, be crisp, potentially leave a little bit of sweetness.
and be trustworthy.
And it's something we've used
Yes,
before. We weren't
yes.
going to try a new yeast. So I've used the Liberty Bell multiple times.
You know, that's something that can't be understated too. When you're doing a beer like this,
Trustworthy,
where
yeah.
there's some unknowns.
Right.
Well,
You know-
honestly, I will say this. James contacted me and said, "Hey, what's going on? I'm not really seeing a lot going on." And I said,
That's a
gravity,
slow moving yeast. Yeah.
And I said, because there's a chance that it's already either done its job or it's just really getting going.
That
you
yeast
have
takes
to check
2
the
days to get
gravity,
going.
You know, yeah. And
It-
that's
it
basically where we were talking about that. And
Yeah.
he said, "I see this," and he showed me a picture. I go, "I'm seeing the activity there."
Yeah.
And he said, after that, like 4 hours later,
It's just
going,
it
so-
But that's a
explodes.
super predictable yeast, and when you're doing a beer like this, you want it any place you can put predictability, you want to, because there are some unpredictable parts of it when you're talking about spice. Unless you've done
Right.
it several times, when you're talking about spices and that kind of thing, there's some unknowns to it. So if your fermentation can be predictable and you know where you start and finish and what kind of flavor contribution is going to come out of it, that every time you want to go with that. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and anytime you're doing any beer that is adding this extra character in that is beyond the boundaries of standard beer,
Yeah.
you really want to be constrained and know where you're going with it. I mean, this isn't like an old ale, which is a holiday beer. This isn't like a strong ale. Anything that's usually holiday beers also go into like bigger beers and whatnot. This isn't that. You know, it's not that kind of thing.
You know, one of my
so-
favorite holiday beers ever. I don't think we
Schlitz?
can. No,
Malt
What's his-
Pearl.
no.
Blatz?
I don't even think we can get it in Texas anymore. But was Scaldus Noel?
Oh,
the Noel, yeah.
That was so good. But
That's
that was
a lager, right? Isn't it a lager?
no.
No, I don't even
It's
know.
a big ass Belgian beer that's like
giant Belgian beer.
12-14%. It was so good.
That sounds like a good beer for the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
Very much
quad.
I remember the name, but
Yeah.
okay, yes.
Listen
okay,
here,
yeah.
Grandma.
Yeah.
I never liked you. You always give me
We
shit.
don't talk about grandmas again, all right? You're gonna get into weird stories
Come
with
on,
grandmas.
yeah.
Told me
again.
that
A little-
story and then you give me a crappy Christmas present.
Listen, Grandpa.
Screw you, Grandma.
You can't talk
Yeah,
like that anymore.
Grandpa.
You know, we. It's all.
That's what
it's all-
holiday beers are for, is getting up the courage to tell off all your relatives, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Or
I thought
drinking
you were
yourself
getting
into a
into
stupor
your
afterwards.
gilf stories, but we don't want to know that.
Please, none of us want to know about that.
I
Well,
think you have a balance.
My wife
there.
is about to be a gilf, so
There you go.
she didn't like it when I told her that.
nice. Well, she should have.
I agree that she should have liked that, yes, but she did not.
I can't imagine why.
No gratitude,
Just
no
beyond
appreciation.
No, nothing there.
But that's true, though. I mean, when you get down to it,
What the
holiday beers
everybody
are.
likes-
When we get down to the gilfs,
I'm so glad she doesn't watch this. She'd be so.
when you get
fucking
down
mad
to
at
it,
me.
there's the beers that are big and bold and dangerous, and then there's the stuff that's a lot of in between, which is just about the flavor and like the highlighting of a situation. You know,
Well,
this is good with
yeah.
this is good with sweets. This is good with like turkey. You know, things like that. Those kind
A
of
cigar.
flavors.
we
A
didn't want
cigar.
Good
to.
with
Yeah,
cigars.
you know,
and
you don't.
fall and the cold night. I want to have this.
Sitting around
you
a
know.
fire.
Yeah,
You don't want to go
exactly.
safe, but you don't want to go crazy. You want to take a risk. but
That's
you,
a really good way of putting
But
it.
you
yeah.
want to take a
When
calculated
you
risk.
say, "Baby, you're going to be a fucking amazing gilf."
Yeah.
That is a perfect close to this episode. That
No,
is
no,
perfect.
Yeah.
We had other things to get to, I thought.
We do?
We do.
Oh yeah, we do. You know, but
we have
Chris
to go
is not
beyond
that
that.
important.
Ah, damn it.
Well, okay, let's move on beyond like the beers we're talking about. We have one more to actually open and try as
Yes,
we
yes.
as we
So
discuss
while
it.
we
But Chris,
open this beer and drink about it,
drink about it.
Let's drink it. Let's not talk about it. Let's
all
drink about it.
it. Yay! No, let's let Chris talk about his was it Camp Kegerator?
His
Camp
Camperator.
Camperator?
His
No, it's
Camperator.
Kegerator.
It's Camperator.
You
patent
don't get to
pending.
name this one, damn it.
Yes, it's a Camperator.
I don't
patent
know,
pending.
man. I think Mikey might have won.
Mikey wins a lot. I try not to let him win too much.
Yeah, but I think he might have got this one.
I know, that's a problem.
So the Camperator. You brought this to our recent homebrew club meeting, and I was super
Yes.
impressed with it. So why don't you talk about your?
I was super impressed with the day you brought it to Learn to Homebrew Day. I was like, man, you rolled that in. It was the perfect timing.
Yeah.
It had everything we needed.
So the what I started off with was I had a camping trip coming up, and I wanted to share homebrew with my friends and family that are going with me. So I started looking at how do I move things from a keg into a bottle and do that while preserving carbonation. I said, that's going to be too damn hard. I don't want to do that. So I started looking at jockey boxes. And I realized jockey box is going to cost me quite a bit, and I'm going to have 1-2 taps on it, and I'm going to fill the thing with ice. So
You
I'm
know
going to
what's amazing about this? If you see the video shot, I don't know if you can or not, but
No.
it's like his eyes are like blacked out because the camera's right in front of him. It was a great camera placement.
No, we can't see video. It says
I'm in the witness protection. Is
no
that what it looks
signal
like?
for current input device. Check
Oh
the
yeah,
status.
yeah, sorry.
Does
Hey,
this help?
Brandon.
It's the video.
This
Okay.
camera right here?
Yes, it's right in your face. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Okay. I'm
Sort of.
visible
Yeah,
now.
yeah, perfect.
I don't look like I'm in 60 Minutes talking about horrible crimes. Okay.
Maybe you should.
Just move this back.
Well, you were talking about holiday beers, and in Stubby's eyes, that's a horrible
that's
crime.
A horrible
It is.
crime, yeah.
Anyway,
Talking about taco beer.
I was looking at making a jockey box,
Let's
and
talk about
I
it.
started looking for ideas of how to transport, 2 kegs of cold beer and serve out in the elements. And I came across a forum post on one of the American Homebrewers Association site.
Anytime holiday beers taste like bourbon, I'm okay with that.
Agreed. Of a guy who had taken an old trash can, insulated it, and was able to fit 3 kegs into it. And he took leftover parts he had laying around. Well, I didn't have leftover parts laying around, so I went out and bought a 65-gallon trash can.
And this
1
is
inch.
one of those toter trash cans with the wheels on it, the same
Yeah.
kind that the
Same kind
The
of
new
the
automated,
recyclers pick up with.
trash
This is
trucks
what
come
I
by and
have in my
grab
house
and dump.
right now.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Throwaway trash. Yeah.
Yeah.
So old trash can is
Old trash
underselling
can
it.
is
It's
a
a
feasible plan to do if you were doing smaller, probably. But I went with the heavy-duty big one with the big heavy-duty wheels on it, big heavy-duty lid. I got the 1-inch foam insulation from Home Depot. I got 5 cans of spray foam. Glued it into place on the sides. Spray foamed all the corners up. Test fit. I was able to fit 3 kegs snugly in there. 3 5-gallon homebrew
Did you do the
kegs.
bottom?
I did the bottom as
Did the
well.
bottom? All right.
and the lid. And then
Nice.
put duct tape over the top so that when the lid closed with the foam insulation on top, it actually sealed the kegs inside of a foam insulation section.
And then there's some headspace on top of the kegs too, right?
There was a little headspace on top so that I could store CO2 cartridges, and I plan on putting a 2.5 pound CO2 tank in there to plumb in, but I'm using the little CO2 cartridge primers that we sell in the store.
Yeah, little chargers.
$20, yeah. They're you charge it once, and it's good for like 15, 20 full pours.
Yeah, you never touched it whenever we were pouring on our Homebrew Day.
Once
We
it-
actually hit it a lot. So
Yeah. Once you charge it and you get it down, it works great. If you put cold kegs into it, you don't need to add ice to it for probably 5-6 hours. When I took it camping, I put 2 blocks of dry ice into it, and it stayed cold for 5 days.
So the
Nice.
other part of this you got to mention is how is your faucets.
Yes, I did in fact drill holes through the insulation and through the side and put 4-inch shanks on it. Actually plumbed it into the plumbed it in with Bollock disconnects, and put actual chrome faucets on it with tap handles.
You do need to put a wood backing behind it, though. We were talking about that.
Yeah, and I'm
It
going
moves
to
a
try a
little.
revision afterwards to do that, but
Just his tap handles, the limits of a plastic walled trash can and foam insulation. He can't get the screw
Super
nut on the
tight
back of
connection.
If you
the-
tighten
the
them too
beer
much,
nut.
it'll just smash.
It's just
through the
gonna
insulation.
it's just gonna smash. So if you put a piece of wood on the outside of that insulation,
He said wood.
yes, I did. even a small piece of plywood
There we go.
cut, it gives the nut enough something to bind. I said nut too. I saw him leaning over towards the mic.
Yeah.
It's gonna give the nut enough to bind on, and will allow his tap handles from spinning. And that was Brandon's
Yeah.
concern at the meeting. Was he's like, man, I
That
like it.
wasn't my concern, dude.
Yeah, you walked up. You're like, man, I really
No,
love
it
that
was
kegerator.
not me.
I love that camperator, but his tap spin.
There was
That's not-
movement.
that was
no,
not-
there
he
was
did-
movement.
it was not-
He did say that.
Hey, I will
I
say
did not
this.
say that. You said
You
that.
did
to
say
me.
that.
You said that.
No.
And
You
Chris
said that.
nailed
No, you said that.
1.0
No, you said that.
version 1.0. He nailed it. That was it.
Yeah.
Worked
I
really
think there's
well.
room
What's
for
great?
really
What's
said
great
that,
about
but-
this is
No, you
it's,
said that.
it's your standard rolling trash can
Stop saying wood.
with
If,
3 faucets coming off the side of it. It's
Will you make this one live?
wonderful.
Right here, Stubby?
Oh, there
I
you
got a
go.
picture here.
Putting up. Yeah, we
Put it on
can't tell
Greg-
whether or not
Put it on
we're-
Greg's camera.
Or that. No,
Yeah, there you go.
That one? Oh, yeah, there we go.
There we go. So what's great about this, it just looks like a rolling trash can with 3 faucets coming out the side of it, which is perfect. But when you open it up, the insulation he was able to put in it was really well done. Very thick insulation all around the sides. You could tell that with the 3 kegs in there, and if you were to put something in there to cool it, would really stay cold a long time. I would say you could even put a drain on the bottom and fill the thing full
That's
of ice.
also a plan.
Right.
In the
I would
future.
be willing to bet that over a weekend,
Plug
if it
and
wasn't
unplug.
hot, you could keep that thing cool with 6 or 7 bags of ice for a whole weekend.
Right.
It's pretty
I bet.
minimal.
Yeah,
The
which is
original-
pretty minimal. Yeah, and here's the thing: when you talk about jockey boxes, what drives me crazy about jockey boxes is, yes, the beer will get cold as it goes through the jockey box and you serve it, but it's sitting in a keg that's not cold. The
Right.
carbonation leaves the beer.
And ideally,
Right.
that
And it
beer
gets
should.
hotter debating on where it's sitting. So
I mean,
Right.
if you're using a jockey box correctly, your beer's supposed to be sitting. That keg should be sitting in an ice box as well.
Right. You have to keep the keg cold for the beer to be
yeah.
correct. If the keg gets warm,
not
the
gonna work.
carbonation won't stay correct. And so that's what I like about this is it keeps your kegs cold.
It keeps the keg
Like
cold.
they're
It keeps
supposed
the
to be.
lines cold. It keeps
Yeah.
faucets.
And then you could
Shanks
easily
cold.
just roll this thing around anywhere you want it.
Well, and you know, another addition, you could get yourself a 2.5 pound cylinder.
that's what I
and
have.
that's what he's got, yeah.
You stick it on the outside. You know,
I'm actually going to stick it on the inside because
Yeah.
I
you
have
probably
enough
have room. Yeah.
yeah,
And
there's
then I'm
room in
going
there.
to plumb instead of doing an actual
Manifold.
manifold. I'm just going to use the T fittings and do it all
T.
plumbed to
I like
the
sticking
same.
mine in the inside instead of the outside, too.
Right,
But,
definitely.
The best thing about this
Stubby's
project,
been drinking a little bit.
I'm just saying.
As long as there's wood on the inside.
I was just saying.
the best thing
if
about this,
there's wood, you stick it on the inside.
Right, yeah.
the best thing about the project was that I was able to put everything together and test it all out in store here at Stubby's.
You
That's
put that
the best
together real
thing.
fast.
we
too,
like
which
it
is
when
good.
when he tests things on wood
Sadly,
in store.
he tried to take it to a work function, and they were like, "No beer here."
Yeah. They said originally on the work email that it was BYOB, no hard alcohol, because we'd had problems before. And then I wheeled it out of the car, and they went, we changed it. We're not allowed to have
When
beer
he
here.
showed up with a big kegerator, basically, like,
Yeah.
no, is
called
is
their
that
bluff, dude.
alcohol?
And I went, I'm sorry. I guess I'll just take my 15 gallons of beer, wine, and cider home. And they went, no, don't go home. Just don't bring that into the park.
Yeah, stand right outside the
It
park
looks
so we
like
can
a
all go
trash
to it.
can, man.
My guess is that if you take this camping,
Jesus.
if you take this camping, your chances of getting
You
wood
forgot to light
inside
it,
are
dude. You
much
forgot to light it.
improved. Yeah, what the hell happened there, dude?
Killed a little bit.
Oh man, that's no good.
It's delicious,
All right,
though.
well, I believe that we may have
Jump the shark.
reached the end of the tracks with this
Hey,
train.
we got to give one shout out though.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
really delicious.
Our rabbit hole.
Yes,
So we
Rabbit
meant to go
Hole
down there every
Midnight
time.
Snark,
Yeah, it's
which
really good.
I've had this before and absolutely
We
loved it.
poured this right before we had this conversation.
Bourbon barrel aged. Was it a dark saison?
No, it's a dark export stout.
Oh, is it?
Dark
Okay.
saison.
No,
What?
it's got some yeast character to it. It's
And
Not-
it says it on there actually. I found this today.
Oh, yeah,
I was
export
going
stout.
in
Yeah,
the
you're
store and I said, you know what?
well, export
I
stouts
have to pick this up
a
to share
fruity
tonight,
yeast
and-
character to them.
And it's one of those things where I think that Tom and Matt, you guys did an amazing job on this, and I'm glad that I actually picked this up and shared it tonight because we haven't. I haven't
glad,
had
too.
this before, so
Kind
I'd had the dark- I had-
kind of like Brandon's going to share with his gilf later.
No,
Yeah, he is.
it's gone now.
I
so.
think that they
too
said
late.
they're going to
It's-
have this
it's already too
on
late.
draft.
He's sharing a whole nother animal with his gilf later.
Yeah, he
based
is.
off the midnight dark snark.
sharing an animal,
Yeah, you are.
Maybe that too.
or just gonna
Maybe-
sit around and
maybe a
pet the
li-
dog. Yeah,
maybe-
that's probably about right, actually.
Maybe a little Brit.
Yeah, though this beer though, this is something that does qualify for a holiday beer. Usually an export stout wouldn't, but I thought let's buy this tonight because it's in the right range. It sits nice and it's picture having this with like a fireplace, not a campfire. A campfire works too, but a fireplace especially, I think. So
smoking jacket.
Or
Nice
like
pipe.
a
put on
burning
your
car.
smoking jacket or a burning car.
Burning car, like you
Or a
sit
burning
outside
trash
your
bin.
ex's burning car.
Hey, you want to sit around a burning trash bin?
Maybe
Right.
a bearskin
Because
rug.
that's where all your
Ah,
things are,
the
and
smell
you're
of
just
hot
like,
garbage and
I'm done with this. So
Barrel aged export stout.
if I'm going to be done with something,
Oh,
I
I
want
thought
to
you
finish
guys were
it
doing a
with this,
tribute
so.
to Hugh Hefner, but whatever.
Yes and no.
But Tom, you did a great job. Matt, great job. Laren,
Hope to see you all.
Laren, yes.
Laren, you did a great
Not
job.
Laron.
So-
But anyway,
Right, got
what do we got here coming up in the next episodes? Because I think we won't wait.
I don't know, man. Let me look at the page here. and I
Autumn
can tell you.
seasonal beer.
Pages.
Whoa, we missed that one.
There's a lot of pages.
There's a lot of pages.
That's what I do. Text.
It is what you do. You're a wordsmith.
I will drown you in text.
Yes, you will.
In future episodes, we will
In future
continue to
episodes,
cover.
we
There's
will
only
continue
like
to
9
cover
pages.
beer.
Cover.
Oh, sorry.
Well, we will get back to more of the
We
brewing.
will
bag
get back to
brewing.
more of the boomer back.
And,
Somebody commented this week that we need to get a bouncer towards the end of this episode, and I think he may be right.
you might be right.
Yeah, that was
Of course,
something
that was
else.
after-
That
that
was
was
a
a-
whole other thing.
Can I bounce?
Very important.
I'm bigger than everybody, but Stubby's my height, so I'll bounce. I'm happy.
I think we should
I'm
get Austin.
scrappy though, dude, and I
I
fight dirty.
No, I
Want
think
me
we
to
should.
take care
of
No,
those?
no, Austin.
You're asking
Austin
the wrong
is our
person
bouncer.
for that.
You can bounce me, but you're gonna have teeth marks in your balls. That's all I'm
Wait,
saying.
what?
dude.
This is a
won't
totally
be the
different
first
turn in this
time.
Won't
episode.
be the first time, right?
Can we pay for that?
Do we get it for free?
So now we know why you don't want to share an Uber ride with Pete.
Well,
Either way,
that's a whole episode in
I will
itself.
say this, despite the ball biting comment, and maybe Brandon will have a recipe for Rocky Mountain oysters.
Rocky Mountain East.
What the hell?
Basically, what we want to say is food pairing and recipe development with beer. So
Yeah, some food
Brandon's
pairing
been talking
stuff.
about that. He's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
that
I
he wants
cook
to
with
share,
beer a lot, so I think maybe we should.
Knows that
Briefly,
drinking
yeah.
and cooking.
I think
or-
it's good.
Walkie Moyton.
Moyton.
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain oysters.
Walkie Mountain.
Rocky Mountain. Oh.
Basically, adventure awaits.
Yes. All right.
Adventure.
Anyway,
So we should just put an end to this.
Yes,
I
we
think
should
so.
we should check out our
Right
Patreon
now.
account at
At,
patreon.com/Come and Brew It Radio and support the show because we have $2, $5, $10, and $20 options. Every little bit counts, and plus we want to
obviously
reward
need as
you.
much support as we can get.
We want to reward you and help you
We have no homes.
keep the show going, get involved, and improve it.
Help us.
Well, thanks again for listening
we
to
might-
Come and Brew It Radio. Be sure to share with your friends on social media. Give us some ratings on iTunes and Stitcher, and send any ideas or comments
Any
to
ideas,
info
anything.
at texasbrewinginc.com. Also, be sure to check in on our brew days with the guys at their Brew Focus Facebook pages at
Brew
Brew with
what?
Stubby, at Brew with Brando, at Brew with Mikey B, at Brew with Pete, at Brew with Chris, and at Brew with Keg.
Thanks for listening.
Until next
Yeah.
time.
Come and brew it.
Come and brew
Come and
Cheers.
brew it.
Happy holidays.
It would be